What's going on, everybody? TheKennyDubz here with another Mega Man X Dive character overview video. Today we're going to be taking a look at Base Double Cross as he releases soon in the global version of X Dot. So, with Base Double Cross, or XX, I don't actually know how it's pronounced. I say Double Cross because I played Monster Hunter Cross and Double Cross in the Japanese version, and that's how it was there, so that's why I say Double Cross. Anyway, I don't know if Base is going to come with his voices on Wednesday. He's supposed to be releasing Wednesday as a Next Dive Festival character, so I don't know if he's going to have our voices or the DNA. If he were to come with the DNA and the voices, though, that should mean that we get a pretty lengthy update. So we would have maintenance on Tuesday night leading into Wednesday at Reset. Since we've heard nothing about that just yet, I'm just going to assume that we're not getting the voice or the DNA for right now. But it is something that could change as I'm recording this on Monday evening. Anyway, let's take a look at Base's active skills. First up, we have Hell's Rolling. Hurls a chakram that will travel across the ground and deal damage targets along its path, dealing roughly 218% attack damage. When it penetrates target, they will be reduced to 50%. So after it penetrates a target, it'll still do a pretty chunky amount of damage as well. It'll get cut to about 109-ish%, but that's still pretty nice damage there. As for the modifier chips here, we have Power Oriented, damage rate increased by 25%, and Hell's Rolling movement speed reduced by 50%. Not all that great. To be honest, the power increase is nice. Maybe use this in PvE, but I think you would rather use this in PvE. Harden, increase damage by 40% active penetration, so you can hit more targets and deal more damage to them. This might be decent on some maps as well, where you can really make use of the terrain and have it bounce back and forth. Like maybe in cyberspace for PvP style. And then we have ammunition expansion, increase the number of shots by 1, which is fantastic. So this is putting them from 2 Hell's Rolling to 3, which is very, very nice there. And this is probably the modifier chip you're going to be using the most anyway, because it gives you another, one more ammo to use in your clip. Next up, we have the Chaos Nightmare skill. And Chaos Nightmare is actually a very, very nice skill. Release an energy ball at a North terrain and causes damage equal to 680% damage of your attack. Now that's very good, because if this crits, this can just raw one-tap the opposition, which is amazing. Though with this, that it doesn't have inherent, like, the tracking on it isn't very good. Like, it'll aim it towards someone, but like it won't like really track them without using the positioning chip, which I'll get into in a moment. First up, we have Chaotic Pressure. The flight speed increases damage rate by 25%, flight speed reduced by 50%. Again, you really don't want to use that. It's not that great. Maybe in PvE, but this one, Chaotic Infusion. When this attack hits a player, it will cause confusion and temporarily disables automatic aim. This one seems nice at first, but with what I just mentioned earlier about how the tracking isn't that great on it, you don't really want to use this one either. The one you want to use right here is Chaotic Seeker. Increase flight speed by 20% and enhance the tracking effect. So this gives it tracking and enhances the flight speed by 20%. So it'll fly towards the opposition faster. Unfortunately, it's on a 12-second cooldown, but with its passive skills, what we're about to get into. First up, we have Chakram Activated. When you hit a target with a weapon, reduce prep time of Hell's Rolling by 2 seconds. This effect can only activate again after a 2-second cooldown. So basically, your Hell's Rolling, once they're fully depleted, I think they have an 8-second cooldown. Close to it. So they essentially have a 4-second cooldown because of your passive here. As when you hit a target with your weapon, you reduce cooldown by 2 seconds, and it goes on a 2-second cooldown, right? So 2 seconds, 2-second cooldown, then 2-second, 2-second cooldown again, and by that time you'll have your chakram back, assuming you have been hitting the target with your weapon, which is pretty nice. It gives him a lot more uptime to keep damage up and keep pressuring the opponent. Next up, we have Chaos Activated. When you use Hell's Rolling, reduce the prep time of Chaos Nightmare by 2 seconds. Now, this one is really, really good, because this one isn't conditional like the Chakram Activated is. So as long as you're using your Hell's Rolling, you reduce the prep time for Chaos Nightmare by 2 seconds. And like I mentioned earlier, this is on a 12-second cooldown. However, you can roughly get that down to 6 because of connecting with your Hell's Rollings. Now, I say roughly 6 because you might not have this modifier chip equipped, which I think it's the best one to use. I think this is the one you use 100% of the time. So you use that, and you get you basically get this back every 6 seconds, which is really, really nice. Next up, we have Black Barrier. When using a skill, gain a shield that will withstand about 86% attack damage. This effect can only be triggered once more after the second cooldown. This one I like as well, just because this is very reminiscent of the shield he has up in Battle Network 5 when he goes to use an attack. So whenever you use a skill, just like in Battle Network 5 as well, you get the unique Black Barrier, even animation like you had in Battle Network 5 too, which is pretty cool. Next up, we have the modifier Chip. The range of Hell's Rolling is significantly increased by 250%, and when Chaos Nightmare hits a target, remove all positive status. That is very, very nice there as a passive. As you can see now, we're kind of getting into where they're just kind of just like, let's just throw things together and call it a passive, right? Increasing the range of Hell's Rolling by 250% is amazing. I think actually, oh no, it actually doesn't have one of those as a modifier Chip. That'd also be really bad. But that's very, very nice. That's a huge range increase. I think that the only other range increase that's close to that might be Swimsuit Rolls. Swimsuit Rolls increase on one of her skills. And then Chaos Nightmare, when it hits, it removes all positive status effects. So this is actually a lot better than Scourge, because you don't even have to inflict the, what's that status called? You don't have to inflict the interference status. You just have to hit with this, and then it'll remove all positive status. It'll just dispel just on hit, right? You don't have to, like if I come over here real quick just to look at Zero has to cause interference in a target with interference in order to trigger that. Whereas base double cross, you just have to hit with your Chaos Nightmare, which is very, very nice. Then we have Chaotic Barrier. When Black Barrier absorbs too much damage and breaks, gain an invincible shield that prevents all damage and instantly refreshes Hell's Rolling and Chaos Nightmare. This is also a fantastic passive as well, because once your shield gets dropped, it's very, very important that you look at the wording for this. When a Black Barrier absorbs too much damage and breaks, right? So specifically it says it breaks, not removed, because if it gets taken away from you with like Grudge Axe or Zero Knuckle, this will not trigger. So it's very, very important to be mindful of that. But when it does break, you get a 2-second iframe, which is great. Iframes are always fantastic. And then your cooldowns for Hell's Rolling and Chaos Nightmare, they just refresh. So that means you can keep up the offensive pressure with, you know, your 3 uses of Hell's Rolling or your devastating Chaos Nightmares. Because again, if this crits, it's going to do a lot of damage inherently. So there is that. Next up, we're going to take a look at the DNA for base double cross. Again, I don't know if he's going to drop with this, but if he does, great. Again, I'm just going over this as per usual, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what to expect when he gets his DNA. So first up, we have energy feedback. When defeating a target or with a weapon or skill, recover HP equal to roughly 19% of your attack. Effect can only be triggered once more after a 6-second cooldown. This one's okay. This one's really good for PvE type content. Not that great for PvE, as you won't really have it active all that much. Really good for PvE content though. Next up, we have Body of Chaos. When HP is 50% or high, reduce damage taken by 20%. That is also very, very nice. However, this does kind of conflict with base level cross's 5th passive, because this 5th passive says when your Black Barrier absorbs too much damage and breaks, you gain a shield, invincible shield, and then your refresh happens, right? So if you're above 50% HP, it's going to be a little bit harder for you to get to the point where your shield breaks, right? So it's a little bit of like a maybe you don't want to unlock it. I probably will unlock it anyway. I already did on this end because I use base for PvE as well alongside PvP. So there is that. It's just something that, again, to be mindful of. Because base doesn't really have all that much inherent defense anyway. It's only 20% while his HP is above 50% as well. So that's not even all that great because it's conditional. If it was unconditional, just take 20% less damage, sure, it'd be a lot better. But it's conditional when you're above 50% HP. So it's not as great because of that, and because it semi-conflicts with this. This also means that your barrier is going to break a little bit. It's going to be harder to break your barrier, right? Because if you're above 50%, this will absorb the same amount of damage, but you're taking 20% less damage because you're above 50% HP. And then finally, Eroding Chaos, which I really like. When Hell's Rolling hits, it will slow the target move's movement speed by 36%, can be stacked up to 2 stack, which is very, very nice again here, especially because Hell's Rolling can ricochet off of terrain, hit multiple times, so that's good. Stack the slow, you know, make use of your other skills. Then, like your Chaos Nightmare, it'll be harder for them to dodge your Chaos Nightmare. So that's very, very nice. And then let's go take a look at the unique DNA real quick. Surprise attack when causing confusion status, hitting target in confusion status, move all positive status, effectively when we trigger again after 8-second cooldown. That's pretty decolon right there. Again, because you don't want to use the confusion associated with this. If this automatically confused, great, that'd be fantastic. Then you wouldn't have this chip though, however. But since you're going to be using this anyway, that's not that great as it is. On top of that, you already naturally dispel all buffs as it is when you hit with Chaos Nightmare. Though with this does make it a little bit more lenient for you to do that. Maybe if you're using a weapon that inflicts confusion, you can make use of that, but I don't think this is all that great, realistically. Base, however, does have things like Player Sentinel, which is okay. You don't really want to run too much tankiness on base because you're not that tanky in general as it is. And again, if you're running too much defense on base, that makes it a lot harder for you to get to your Chaotic Barrier passive as well. So you really want to lean more towards offensive with base, because base will struggle a little bit versus more defensive units, more tankiness. Because base has one-tap potential, you don't really want to be in a kind of like more long drawn out fight. You want to try to just burst them down as quickly as possible from range with poke. And with that, you have Player Killer 3 here to help with that. Thorough Preparation and Amplification, long range boost, mid range boost is okay. Launch Amplification, that's actually not that bad, to be honest. It's okay. I think Player Killer is going to be a lot better if you're using it for PvP. But Launch Amplification isn't bad. Outside of that, it's not too much there. So here we have Immobilize Resist, Slow Resist. Immobilize Resist is always nice to have. Damage Reduction is okay. Defocus Special Attack, I'm not really sure why that's there. Convenience Special Attack, again, not that great. Slow Special Attack is nice to have on him though, because you do inflict slow with your Hell's Rolling. So that's nice. Outside of that, there's not really much else over here. So yeah, you're probably going to want to go slow special attack, stack your slow special attacks, stack your player killers, you know, things like that on your base here. So with all that covered about base, let us go take a look at some weapons that might pair well with base. Alright, so again, kind of as per usual, base doesn't have any real inherent preference for weapons, so I'm just going to try to recommend some that I think would be very good on base. First up, as per usual, Cannon God. I think Cannon God's really, really good on base, and partially the reason why I said launch adaptability isn't the worst on him as the weapon amp of choice that they gave him. This is a weapon that can just hit poke from range. It has Immobilize attached to it. Ignores terrain, all that other generic good stuff as well. And we're going to have basically a better version of Cannon God coming out soon in Global. So the launcher amp isn't as bad on him, though I still wouldn't really recommend that. I would just recommend Player Killer, to be quite honest. I don't think Explosive Bolt is a bad option either. Allows you to poke from range. It has an insane range as it is, and alongside that, it has inherent Player Killer on it as well as a hidden skill. Now, a lot of people like Penetration more. It's really just preference between Player Killer and Penetration. I think Player Killer is better overall, as it is the more consistent skill, but Penetration can opt for more damage output overall. However, like I said, it's less consistent than Player Killer, because for Penetration, there's a little bit more setup to get to. Setup and stage. You need them in like the right positioning to really get the max use out of Penetration, get like all the hits in. But for Player Killer, it also applies to your skills as well. So I think Player Killer is overall the better option, despite Penetration having a higher DPS output, potentially. Now, Nightmare, I think, is a decent option on base for its utility. Nightmare doesn't offer all the... Well, I can't say Nightmare doesn't offer all that much. However, what Nightmare does offer, it offers you just the attack boost, right? For swinging it around. which is actually extremely useful. So what you could do is you just activate the nightmares, you know, just swing it around a few times, and then you can launch off attacks from range, right? You go like maybe say like nightmare and like switch to explosive bolt, launch your chaos nightmare, and maybe some hell's rolling, or you go nightmare alongside. Well, that's a really awkward combination if you do nightmare plus this, but you get the idea, right? You just use nightmare for the utility of getting the attack stacked, which is very, very nice. I think Sniper Buster is also a decent option as well to kind of poke from range, though granted it will depend on the map you're on whether how much value you can get out of Sniper Buster. It has a little bit less range than Explosive Bolt, but I think you can get used out of Sniper Buster as well. And Sniper Buster is potentially available for free, so that might be why you'd want to use that over Explosive Bolt. Since Explosive Bolt you have to pull, and Sniper Buster you can just make memories for. So that is an incentive to use Sniper Buster. One of the Sniper Buster, the other Sniper Buster of choice, Sniper Style Buster, with access to on global. Destructive Laser is an option as well that you might want to use. So there is that. I think Buster Melee would be pretty decent on base overall as well, just because you can poke from range, and Buster Melee is a pretty good combination anyway with the cards and things like that we have access to. And since we're mentioning Buster Melee, Grudge Axe is a decent option that you could use. So rather than just dispelling the buffs, you can just yoink the buffs away instead. If you really want to make use of base's confusion, something you could do is use a Savage Tusk of Thunder. Savage Tusk of Thunder, I think, is one of the better machine gun type weapons that we have access to. It can also just dispel buffs on its own. On top of that, it has a unique defense crush that it has access to further amplify your damage. On top of that, this hidden skill, I can't show it right now, but the hidden skill of this does come with confusion, so you can use that if you want. You can also use Player Killer, but if you're using Player Killer, I think the Sniper Buster would be better for that. Can't believe I almost forgot to mention Turbo Cannon. I was talking about Cannon God earlier. Turbo Cannon is also a decent option as well, as it has inherent iframes for you to make use of when you don't have your own iframes up. Though, as per usual, if you're going to go for the Turbo Cannon to use for PvP, make sure you unlock the overheat protection and avoid unlocking the compression tank. I say this every time just so that people are aware. By doing this, you increase your energy, which sounds like something good, like you increase your range of energy, but by doing that, it means you also need to take more shots in order to reach your to deplete your clip in order to get to your invincibility frames or your iframes. So just be aware of that when you're using this weapon. Ancient Relic is always an option, as well as Ancient Relic has nice utility. It doesn't have the nice utility that the Nightmare has in terms of raising your attack. However, you can get the Speed Rune. Assault Rune is okay. This does increase your crit damage, but it doesn't increase your crit rate inherently, so you might want to be aware of that. But something you could also use is the Cleanse Rune. Now, you can use a Protective Rune, however, this shield is weaker than your Black Barrier, so you'll have to be very, very careful if you have Protective Rune alongside base level cross your enemy that has a shield inherently. But this also gives you a crit increase, so you can have a bit of a higher chance of crit with this weapon on, but if you're using this weapon, you're using it for one of the hidden skills anyway. And then, as per usual, if you want to use base level cross in PvE, it's going to depend largely on what you're doing, but the Monster Hunter Sword is the weapon of choice for any boss stage when you're doing a PvE stage, as the HP recovery is great, alongside the Turf War as well. And there can only be one extended duration of Turf War. Super Mag Gun is a weapon that I actually forgot about, as it has a hidden skill for healing when you defeat a target. So this is a good weapon to use for PvP or PvE as well if you need to use machine guns. Heart Spray Gun also has healing attached to it alongside the Bubble Bomber as well. Bubble Bomber has 2, Oracle of Life and the Regeneration. And the Heart Spray Gun has Emotional Reflux and one of your hidden skills, either Inject Emotion or Free Emotion, will allow you to heal. We can't forget the Fetcher Specialty as a weapon for healing as well. This is a melee weapon that allows you to heal. Alongside the faster specialty, there is the Crimson Scythe. However, the Crimson Scythe requires you to unlock its hidden skill in order to heal, whereas the faster specialty, if you are playing during the event to get this faster specialty, is only, I think it's his 4-star, 3 or 4-star passive, I don't remember. But for Crimson Scythe, at least, Crimson Scythe is a free-to-play weapon, because you can just make it in the lab, research it level 4. And just to show you here, the skill for healing on this is the HP Absorb. Alright, now that we've covered some weapons that go well with base double cross, let's look at some cards. Alright, and again, much like with weapons, for the cards, it's going to depend on what you have in your DNA and what you're going to want to cover with them. So, again, as kind of per usual, player killer. I'm going to suggest player killer. So you're going to want your mat cards, your Akuma. This doesn't technically have player killer, but this stacks with player killer, so that's good. Your Life Aura card from base EXE, your Sigma X4s, your M Bisons. Then if you're running Buster Melee, you're going to want to use Elite Hunter. Such a good card combination to use, so why not use it if you're running Buster Melee. However, we also have the Mat card, which is an A rank card that you can make use of with your builds for player killer as well. This is an A rank card, so it's pretty easy to get as well. And then after that, you can go for things maybe like slow special attack. Flame Mammoth card probably isn't the best one for slow special attack, but this is the first one that I thought of that has slow special attack. And violins also have player killer as well. If you're really set on making use of the confusion that base double cross has access to, you're going to want maybe confusion special attack if you don't go for that in your DNA. The card I'm showing here is Mr. Famous. We don't have it yet in global, but this card should drop with the newest event in X Dive, the second run of the Mega. I say second run, but the latest Battle Network event. This should come along with that, and it has confusion and special attack too alongside it. Successfully completed is another option you can use for Melee Buster as green blue, and you get this card from Guilds as well as Elite Hunters. I think Elite Hunters is a bit better, but this isn't an option you can use if you don't have your Elite Hunters built up yet, or if you just don't own Elite Hunters just yet. Vile Mark II and Goliath is an option as well if you don't have player killer and maybe you want to try stacking some launcher amplification instead if you're going to be using Cannon God or Turbo Cannon. Alright, that's going to be it for base double cross. I like using him. I think he's an okay unit to use in PvP and for PvE as well. He isn't going to be the strongest unit, but he will be useful for a little while. I think he struggles the most against more tankier build, which is why you want to stack more like player killer on him and some kind of amplifications maybe depending on what you're using. But like I said, that's it for him. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to show your support. I'll channel to go show me enjoying the content. And I'd like to throw a quick shout out to my YouTube channel members, my patrons, for continuing to support me, allowing me to do what I do. If you'd like to support me via either of those means, you can find the information for that down below. And I'll see you guys next time. Later.